A 1, 2, 3, 4.
T to G to I to F to
T to
F.
G to I to F to F. Thank God it's first.
Thank God it's first.
Thank God it's first.
Oh, T to G to I to F to F.
T to G to I to F to F. Thank God it's first.
Thank God it's
First Friday.
Hello, everybody. I am Deacon Luke Rawicki.
And I am Brother Andrew Torrey.
And we are bringing this episode of First Friday of January 2022 from Dallas.
And from Rome.
And so today's episode, you're going to feel sort of like you just walked into like a zoo. And that's because today we're going to be talking about different types of birds to look out for. So, Brother Andrew, there it is. That's already one. And so as you join us in this jungle of ideas and conversation and discussion, feel free to also, in the privacy of your car, make some bird sounds, or while you're on your run, bring the same safari and joy to others around you. So, Brother Andrew, what is this whole bird nonsense all about?
Well, Brother Luke, we just celebrated 81 years as a religious order, the Legionaries of Christ. Our anniversary is on January 3rd, and we were founded in 1941, so 81 years ago. And everybody knows our history. We've had a kind of a checkered past, but we have amazing priests who want to transform the world. And one of the key parts of transforming the world is changing culture, right? Not only changing it, but also seeing positive elements that are in culture and potentializing them. Did I say that? I think I'm using a Spanish word. Promoting them, and building them up. And so, because one of the key things that legionaries want to do is change culture, right? That's what every religious order does, but we do it in a specific way. So that's what we kind of want to talk about today. And these birds, the bird motif has to do with two rivals. So I'll introduce the first one. You can introduce the second one. So the first one are the culture vultures. Oh my gosh. That's a vulture sound.
That's no bad.
And so the culture vultures, they're these ugly birds who feast on rotting flesh, as we all know. And there's some things to be concerned about in today's culture, right? People are feeding on rotting flesh in many cases, and we got to stop that. We need to bring them to the banquet. We need to, how vultures gather on the ground, like they're always like circling above, but then they gather on the ground, and then they're just like a big mass, and they're just feasting, right? Well, we need to get them some fresh air. We need to get them to like fly back up into the air, and to see that it's not about death, it's about life. And so the rivals of the culture vultures are the
flying phoenix. Okay, so if a culture is dying, you'll see signs of that death because there's vultures that are circling around in the air, and you can tell above and like, okay, like this is it. This is maybe the last day. This is our dying moments. A flying phoenix, on the other hand, is a sign of new life. Like, as like the phoenix is the bird that rises from the ashes, like sign of resurrection and new life and newness. And so we're also going to be talking about this rival bird to the culture vulture is the flying phoenix. And so never, ever is it going to happen that there's only negative in our lives. And I think part of the Dunque hermeneutic and here at TGIFF, and as legionaries, as Redemption Christi members, as Catholics and Christians, this goes back to Jesus himself and to St. Paul. You're always looking at finding the positives, finding the values in a culture that maybe seems like, oh, it's all going wrong, and bringing new life out of that. And so we're going to be kind of analyzing parts of the culture. We're going to talk about how we as legionaries go about trying to change culture, throw out ideas, and see where this gets us. Which bird will prevail, Brother Andrew? So you want to start us off? So, Brother Andrew, I was thinking, as we were talking before, like you talk about, okay, like how does a legionary go about it? Or like you said, like there's different congregations. You mentioned before that like everyone's trying to change culture, but in different ways. Like, how do you think a Redemption Christi member and a Legionary of Christ, specifically being the priestly branch of Redemption Christi, how do we go about fending off culture vultures?
Yeah, these culture vultures, that's exactly right. We need to we need to get out our rifle and like shoot him. or maybe that was a little dramatic, but
Little.
a little dramatic. But well, the first thing, Brother Luke or Deacon, is that we need to define our terms. And so, what is culture? What does it mean? So if you go back to the Latin root, you'll find some interesting information. I don't actually know what the Latin root is. But you can look it up. That's your homework. But what is a culture? So a culture is basically the patrimony of values that sustains a certain society. That's what a culture is. Like like a set of values and traditions, ideas that move people's minds, right? The basic principle in culture is that ideas affect behavior. So if you have a certain idea about the way the world is, the way life is, the way people are, the way who God is or who he isn't, or if he exists, anything that has to do with society, which is basically everything to do with philosophy and theology, any one of these ideas will affect the way that you live. So, for example, one of the most obvious things, everybody we all complain about secularization in society. People don't believe God is not relevant to people. So, because I don't believe that God is important, or that maybe he created the world, but maybe he's just kind of like a clockmaker who just kind of like, he created the world and then he kind of went away. Well, if that's my vision of God, then I can't experience God as a father, a merciful father. And that means it could be really hard for me to forgive people. And what is that? What could that be connected to? That could be connected to an attitude of not forgiving others, of holding grudges, maybe even being violent. So there's a really big connection between ideas and behavior, and that's why it's essential for priests, for Random Christi members, especially legionaries. This is part of our charism to analyze culture. What are the ideas that are going around? What are the set of what's moving and shaking this place where I live, this city, this country, and what's good about it? What's not good about it? How can I affect better change? So yeah, that's kind of what culture is. And you were telling me earlier, like there's so many ways to change culture. What you just did some activity, I think, with a group of young people who were struggling with drugs. What was that about?
Yeah, exactly. So, like changing a culture and trying to bring people out of certain negative, destructive situations that they might be in their lives. So I'm working, as you all know, in Monterrey, Mexico, with a boys, like a adolescent Catholic leadership organization, ECYD, for all of you who know what that is, and it's specifically called Club Faro. And so, come Christmas time, we wanted to do some type of apostolate, some apostolic mission, some good work with our families, so the families of the boys, and we got in contact with a home for basic rehabilitation for women who are have been addicted to drugs. Some of them are also involved in prostitution, and I was expecting maybe like a little bit older. Some of them came and they were very young. They were teenagers, and we put this event together with a lot of help and support from parents who organized the meal. So it was like a nice formal Christmas meal along with some music, and I helped put that together with some of the boys who play guitar and cajon, like the drum that you kind of sit on top of it and you play. And there was a woman who took care of what she calls laugh therapy, because there's a real power to humor. All right, and so we put this event together, and it's a very small step to helping these people. They're already in a program. They live in this household together. There's psychologists that live with them. They're constantly with them and helping them to get through it. These women began the night by introducing themselves. They said their names. They said, "I'm a drug addict." And I think that's like one of the first steps, right? That to overcoming your addiction is admitting that you're addicted. But they said it in front of us, in front of the kids, in front of the parents, with no shame, very courageous. And then they said, I've been sober for this long, 3 months, 6 months, 8 months. And so again, it's a small step to changing a culture. You're changing the lifestyle of someone. And they have to separate themselves from where they were before. So they're taken from, the negative situation that's brought them to start using drugs, to a household where they're loved, where the faith is given to them. They live a beautiful sisterhood. That's just what I was perceiving among them. Like they just all got to know each other from living in this house, but since they do everything together, they have classes together. They have dance class together. It's like their exercise. They have like a dance class each day. They have prayer moments together. The director invites over priests for mass and for confession. And I just saw the joy, and like it was almost like them reliving their childhood that had maybe been taken away from them because of these negative situations, and that they were placed in, and then maybe bad decisions that they had made, and we all make mistakes. And so I don't know, it was a beautiful example for me of the power of embracing true culture, which is faith, which are the values of generosity and selflessness, and how, yeah, your life on drugs is basically death, because you lost your freedom, you can't decide anymore. These gifts that God has given us are basically you can't use them, or at least not to their fullness, their full potential. It's kind of like a death. And the faith and being clean gives you this new life. It's like the flying phoenix that hopefully all of us can look for in our lives. If there's parts of us that maybe have lost that freedom, or maybe have lost that ability to use our minds and our will that God has given us. So that's one example. Brother Andrew, bringing it back to you, I don't know if you have another example, or just to talk about maybe where you've seen in your formation that in like the intentionality of, okay, as a legionary, Redeemed Christian member, but as legionaries, we want to change culture. What does that mean, and how are we intentionally forming ourselves to do that, or what's been important for you personally?
Yeah, the first principle that we really focus on is knowing your audience. Who is your audience? Who are you going to help? Who are you going out to minister to? Who are these people that are in front of you listening to you, like for the priest, like on Sunday morning in the homily? Because you could just have your own ideas and things that you like, that you want to talk about, whatever. But if it doesn't connect to the people that you're with, you're just wasting your time, man. And so you need to know your audience. And so like the activity that you did, like going out and helping these people who are struggling with drugs, like those are things that we need to do. We need to know what people are suffering from, these signs of death that are in culture, right? Because to administer the correct medicine, you have to be able to diagnose the problem, right? And so the first thing is like, who's our audience? What's going on in life today? What's going on in politics? What's going on in music and entertainment? What are the values that are in lyrics? Like all this stuff. Know your audience. And the second thing is something that we've always heard that priests insist on, and something I've never really done, at least on the apostolate, is dedicating an hour every day, even though you're like in an active ministry, to study.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're doing that a bunch. I'm doing that. You just finished your how many years was it? 12 years of formation? Something like that? 13?
I mean, both of us, 2009, so like it's going to be 12 and a half come ordination.
Yeah.
13.
So it's definitely a long time. And some people are always shocked. Oh my gosh, 12 years or 13 or 14, or I'm going to be 15 actually. And so people are always like it's so long. But we need to study. We need to sit down at our desks, and it takes time to understand, like, where did the great values that were in previous societies, the first Christian era or the Middle Ages, the Renaissance, where did these come from, and who wrote about them? These philosophers: Plato, Aristotle, Thomas Aquinas, Saint Augustine, the Renaissance humanists, Da Vinci. All these people, they generated culture. They gave birth to a flourishing Western civilization. And so today we see sort of signs of decay, right? And so in order to understand, like, how can we bring this culture back to life, we have to be in contact with thinkers, with philosophers, with theologians. And that means self-discipline of taking time in your day and dedicating at your desk in silence, going through these ideas, reading texts, reading books, listening to podcasts. And Redeemed Christi, that's why formation is so important, because we have to form our minds. It's It's actually a work of mercy. It's a spiritual work of mercy to, and it's maybe worded a little negatively, to instruct the ignorant, right? Maybe we could word it to share wisdom, to share what you've learned with other people is the work of mercy, right? Works of mercy are corporal, right? Like the example that you gave, Deacon. But there are also spiritual works of mercy, and study actually can be one of them if you offer it up with that intention. I want to bring life. I want to bring this flying phoenix back into culture today, so that we can bring new life, right, and chase away these culture vultures.
Very well put. And it's something I love about Pope Francis is that he gets people talking about things that we need to talk about. And you all know just recently he talked about it's selfish for couples today to own pets rather than have children or to adopt. And like you're hitting on an important point when you get like all these people complaining and angry. Like he hit something that is a sensitive spot because it's happening, and it is in certain senses and in certain cases an injustice because there are kids that need to be adopted, and sometimes we give more importance to a puppy or a cat than a human person. And so I was just reading a couple articles on like the feedback or like the stir that it's caused, and actually one lady who you could tell she wasn't happy with what he said, and she's like, no, that's not true in all the cases because not everyone has the economic possibilities to have children, or because of their work, or because of the situation of the world, or climate change, all these things. And she threw it in different like possibilities or like obstacles for having kids. She did say that as a Christian, she was Catholic. She said, as a Christian and a Catholic, I know that each of us is called to love and to give themselves selflessly. But there's so many ways to do that. I don't need to have children. And so that's already a really good discussion, maybe for another podcast, another day. But what I love about Pope Francis is that he gets conversations that need to be had. He gets them going. I don't think Pope Francis is going to come out and say, oh, I'm sorry. He's not going to come out and clarify. He might just leave it at that and let the rest of us talk and say, okay, what kind of culture do I want, or do I want to live in, or do I want to influence, to have an effect on? A culture that's, gives more importance to animals and to pets than to human beings, than to the pro-life issue, than to adoption, to, ending poverty for human beings that don't have enough to eat, or a culture that's kind of superficial and I just like the way my puppy makes me feel, and so like I'm happy, I don't need children. And so he says it's always risky to have children, but he said it's more of a risk to forget the importance of having children, because what you're doing is forgetting and sacrificing motherhood and fatherhood. He says that's more of a risk. It's a greater risk than taking the plunge and with all the uncertainty that there always is going to be in our lives. Can I raise a child in this environment and with my income and with all these different situations that someone might be in? It's a greater risk to forget our call to motherhood and fatherhood, whether that's biological or spiritual, he says. And again, it's like kind of knowing your audience, because he hit the nail on the head. He got people talking, and he has from CNN to Fox to National Catholic Register to Reporter to all these. They'd be able to talk about the same because it's in your face. But hey, like now let's start a discussion. Let's get things going. That was one cool example I saw of a possible flying phoenix in the making that is going to help us at least notice there's culture vultures above us, and we're saying, okay, this could be a sign of a dying culture that forgets the dignity and the value of the human person.
Amen to that, brother. Here in Italy, we're going through a demographic winter, as Pope Francis has often said. And I think this is where his comment about pets and children is coming from. Here, it's in Italy. It's not very. I have to say that I haven't traveled all around Italy, so I don't have the breadth of experience here in Italy. But it's not a very common sight, at least here in Rome, to see pregnant women, or to see when I've gone out to towns or whatever to see women who are having children. It's very common that families here have one child or maybe just two, and usually much older, like mid-30s or so. And so you would find somebody who's in their early 40s, maybe with a kid who's really young, like 5 years old or whatever. And so there's so many factors, there's so many reasons, right? Why this is the case. But one of them is because we have this, I think, one of them is this idea that children or whatever, it doesn't have to be the example of children, it could be like anything that requires a life-changing change to my life, something that alters my life so significantly, is something that I should sort of reject, because having a child it changes everything. I mean, it totally reorients your life. Your life is not about you; it's about kid. It's about your wife, your husband, etc. So this is just one simple aspect of culture, right? Another aspect of culture that as men and women of the church, Redeemed Christi members, that we're called to analyze is politics. Right now, the news networks are talking about the insurrection that happened, or these riotings that happened on January 6th a year ago, right? And without going into the merits, it's very polemical, right? People love Trump, people love Biden, people hate them both. It's a discussion on how did this happen? How did this event happen? What is guiding us? What are the institutions that led such a large group of people to do what they did, to take over the Capitol? How did that happen? Where are they getting their information from? And where they're getting their information from, why are those agencies producing that sort of information? Or are they fighting against another sort of information that's out there? Like what this should generate, discussion. Like what are these cultural movements going on? Like all these new terms that we've heard, identity politics and alt-right and white supremacists and defund the police, black law, all these events, woke. We should be analyzing these things and understanding where these people are coming from. Because there's a lot of bad stuff, right? There are a lot of culture vultures, but there's also elements that are good insights, right? That we should capitalize on, and that'll help people fly up like a phoenix. One small example, in these Trump riots, right? I'll just say it like that. These people who rioted in support of President Trump, they are really zealous about keeping America faithful to the values that were present at its foundation. And that's a really good thing. That's any country that's founded has a constitution, right, or has some sort of document that sort of enshrines in that moment in time values that bind these people together, and that's really important. It's really important to safeguard that. So there are always good intentions. There are always things that we can promote and that we can understand, and so we can foster dialogue with people who don't think like the way we do. And so basically what I want to say is a legionary is called to take a step back, to dedicate time to analyzing what's going on, and to seeing what have past thinkers said about maybe current events today, and how can I shed light? How can I cast away these vultures or these that wasn't a vulture, that was a chicken. How can we get rid of these troublesome animals so that we can help people to fly again?
Yes. And you're probably going to mention it too, but another form of doing this, it would be great to get up on a podium and convince, a million people on the spot that, oh yeah, like those are values that I agree with and they're being lost. And so I'm going to like all million at once, but that's not true. It's, God works gradually. His grace works gradually. And he works personally. And so we as Legionaries and Redeemed Christi members, a big part of changing culture, it starts person to person. It starts at home. It starts in small ways. And it's gradual. It's very, very gradual and strategic. And so Jesus, just like he had his 12 apostles, it's also our calling to, try to make a big impact in society, but to do that through forming a few strong, convinced apostles that are go out, and by a legionary and Redeemed Christi member doing that, you have a much bigger impact than you can have just alone. If it's just all about you, I have to be the one changing culture and forming. No, like I want to help form other culture changers that will help me spread this message, so that Christ's gospel will enlighten all these different aspects. Like you mentioned, politics. There's a really cool apostolate I love that's started in Monterrey. Now it's getting bigger and it already has different locations in other parts of Mexico, at least, and I think in Central America as well. And that's called Valia, Valia, and it's an institute that offers diplomas to university students as they're studying their normal majors. They can sign up and study an extra class each semester, and it's compatible with a bunch of different universities. And you can study one extra class each semester, and then when you graduate, you have, I don't know if it's a minor, if it's a diploma or a license or what you call it, in ethics in different categories. So it can be a business ethics, it can be political ethics, there's digital, or I think it's something like that with like social media ethics. They have a couple other ones that I'm forgetting now. And that's another way you're changing culture. So this diploma is forming future businessmen and women who are going to be, in charge of companies, and they're understanding the need and the importance of having ethics, in your business. So it's not just about making money and competition, but it's about doing all that, holding on to certain values. And so, you do that. We do that. We try to do that on a very personal level, thorough, personal, deep, profound formation for each individual that we come in contact with. And that's how, little by little, the gospel message and the Christ's kingdom will reign in society, in the hearts of all people and in all societies.
Amen. And that I love what you said. Like, our mission is forming cultural changers. Like that's what we do. That's exactly what we do, Deacon. We're so we really want to change the world. We're really passionate about it. I love that. There's a line that Pope Francis has, and I think it's in Evangelii Gaudium, one of his first documents that he published as Pope. He said that we shouldn't be dour judges bent on rooting out every moral deviation, but guardians of the beauty and the goodness and the truth of the gospel. Like guardians, like this is a treasure that we have that we want to bring to other people. And I just love it. So I just love that. We want to form people. We want to form cultural changers. That's what we're all about. And so we have to go one by one. And so a consequence of that is that usually, like Regnum Christi and LCs and Consecrated, we're sort of more focused on smaller group apostolates. We do have sort of sometimes we have big events, right? But that's usually not our thing. Like we wouldn't be running this huge, big 1,000 strong weekend retreat, like these amazing Steubenville conferences that I used to go to with Franciscan, like those. Like we wouldn't do something like that because that's not our strong point. Like our strong point is more smaller groups, and because we really focused on the one-on-one, the spiritual direction, as RC members, all you guys know, right? So yeah, but I just love that. Like we're cultural. We want to be cultural game changers. We want to form these people. We want them to bring out of their treasure box what civilization has, what the Catholic Church has for the world, and that these people who are just feasting on rotting flesh don't realize. And we need to waft these aromas of goodness towards them, and slowly attract them back into the fold, so that they can be set on fire. That's our mission, and it's so exciting. There's so many ways to do it, but yeah, I don't know what you want to add. It's just awesome.
All I want to add is, all right, that was half wolf, half rooster.
That was not a rooster at all.
Half rooster. Anyway, because we need to wake up people. You might think, I can't do anything to change culture, but you can do something that I can't and that Brother Andrew can't. And each of us can do something that others can't, because God has given each of us certain gifts. And kind of like what Brother Andrew's saying, like to instruct the ignorant, it's sort of like a disservice to the world and to culture and to the church for you to hide or not use your talents, or to not dedicate your strengths and your day to spread the gospel in small ways and big ways, but in whatever way that God is asking you in a particular way. And that's the important thing. As legionaries, and we dedicate a lot of time to spiritual direction because we believe and we know that by your baptism you have the Holy Trinity living inside of you, and God is constantly speaking to each one of us and inspiring us to say this, to do this, to not say this, not do this, and to help us grow continually. And we come to moments in our life where things are really difficult, and that's not a moment to hold back or to give up or to slow down, but it's a moment to ask yourself, why? Dunque, what is God then trying to ask me in this moment, in the difficulties I'm having with a friend or with my spouse or kids or at work? And a big part of working person to person is trying to help each of us have a better relationship with that person who means everything and is the most important aspect of any culture and of our existence, which is God. The most important relationship we have is our relationship with God. And a culture that doesn't express that we're made in the image and likeness of God and that we're made for Him and made by Him is a culture that's dying. And a life without having that conscious all the time, or at least, stopping and thinking and remembering that I'm a child of God and that He loves me, that He's with me and accompanying me and has a plan, a mission for me, an exciting mission for me, is a life that's also sort of, maybe you look up and you might have some vultures circling because they're like, this person has already kind of lost hope and this person's kind of forgotten their identity. And so we have to be constantly reminded of who we are. We're children of God, baptized and adopted by God, which sometimes maybe sounds like something less than being biological, but it's not. God chose. When you're a parent who adopts, you're choosing. When you're a parent biological, you don't choose. You chose life, but when you see a child and you adopt him, it's because I'm intentionally choosing you. So you've been, through your baptism, chosen by God to be His, and to ward off those culture vultures. Just remember that every day. Remember, I'm a child of God. I have a mission. It's exciting. It's awesome. I can be an apostle like Brother Andrew. And it starts at home. It starts today. It starts with the decisions I make. Brother Andrew, do you want to throw down a couple bird seeds to get rid of those? Maybe
Yeah,
poison.
definitely not a gauntlet this time. A couple
Yeah.
bird seed. Yeah, I will spread a few seeds. This new year, 2022. All right, you folks. One of my goals this year is to read more, because I get so caught up in my daily activities. It's so strange because I'm studying theology, but I can get so lost and carried away by all the things I have to do that I don't take time. Okay, just sit down and read this book. I on my shelf I have Crime and Punishment waiting for me by Dostoevsky, and it's just collecting dust. So what I recommend to you folks is this year should be a year of reading, because to understand culture we have to read. It doesn't have to be. Maybe some of you you're really busy. Reading can be listening too. So get like an Audible account if you already have one. If you don't have one, or sign up for Word on Fire Institute that Bishop Barron does. They produce excellent resources, so many amazing videos. They're changing culture for Christ. Listen to the RC podcasts they're really well produced, and Father Bartunik's retreats that he does. There's so many resources available, but this year should be a year of forming yourself, of dedicating time. It's not just a hobby or a side. This is an essential part of your baptism, of forming your mind. Loving others also is forming your mind to give them wisdom. That's a great way to love other people. So that's what I suggest. So my bird seeds for this new year are: you need to read, listen, sign up, do something, form your mind.
Yes. And yeah, I was just talking to someone today, and they're telling me about their brother, who has kind of been far from the faith, who's just never very interested. And she's invited him, a few times to like do something, like, hey, want to read this book together and talk about it. And he's like, kind of like never really showed interest. Suddenly he did show interest, and they just finished, I think today, their consecration to Saint Joseph. And basically what it consisted of, at least for the brief explanation I got, was 1 minute audios each day. And that was enough to get him hungry for more. And he said, okay, when are we going to do the next one? And so it doesn't have to, like, what are they interesting? What is he inviting you to? It doesn't have to be sitting down for a really long period of time, or at least you don't have to start like that. Just, it could be a very short. It's amazing how just lifting our head, our eyes, our hearts to God, or to something, to some value that's transcendent, that can inspire us throughout the rest of the day. It's amazing how that can affect our way of kind of the Dunkwe of receiving, having different experiences throughout the day and receiving information, and like it gives us a new lens to want to have that passion very much alive in us all the time, to be these flying phoenixes that are constantly finding new life, and through reading and through formation and through this, you're feeding yourself and warding off those parts of us that maybe are dying out because you're too busy or you're stressed or you've lost hope in your lives. I don't know. I think with that we can sort of wrap up. Put all these birds back in their cages, and it's now up to each of our listeners to choose what species of bird, what bird sounds you're gonna be making this. What bird footprints will you be leaving behind?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I like one of the birds I really like. Favorite bird. Well, I love eagles, but I don't know what sound they make. And another bird that I love are penguins. The March of the Penguins documentary. Yeah, that's great.
I don't know if you knew this, but there are penguins in Australia that they live in a hot area of Australia. Did you realize that? I always thought they lived exclusively in snow and cold regions, but no. There are penguins that live and swim on the beach. So,
well, I learned something new today. Thank you very much.
That and much more to come on future episodes of TV. Don't forget, people, we do not just do.
We do quit.
God bless.
What was that?
TGIFF.
What was that?
Two brothers in Rome.
What was that?
TGIFF.
What was that?
It's a double F, not a singular F.
TGIFF. Instagram is TGIFF.podsquad. Facebook, Instagram,
Internet.
all over.